Hi everybody, Emma Murphy here, disordered eating specialist, psychotherapist and trainer in the area of emotional eating and binge eating disorder. And this series of videos is designed to help qualified health professionals who want some more tools and resources to be able to effectively support clients who disclose emotional eating and binge eating disorder. Now, I'm going to be using a couple of props while I go through these videos. The 4 Energies of Emotional Eating card deck is a card deck I developed out of our Eating Freely program. So they're very helpful if you do ever want to get those for yourself. But actually, what you can do is download the free ebook, which is available in the description below. And in the book, you will find every card and the descriptor on the back of the card, and then a deeper meaning, and then you'll find reflective questions and actions that you can share with your clients. So that is completely free for all practitioners who are watching these videos. Please feel free to just download it from the link below. So without any further ado, let's get started on today's lesson. Hi everybody, so today I'm talking about emotional eating and trauma. Now, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you will know that most of the manifestations that we see with clients with long-standing emotional eating and binge eating disorder are connected back to trauma. So to an extent, every video that you watch in the card series on the channel will be about trauma. A lot of them will relate back to trauma. Now, in particular, the fire cards, which are the mental energy, will be very much related to trauma. And we are talking about a fire card today, and it's this card here. Okay, so this card is called Purposeful Thinking. And what it really relates to on the card, it says, as you can see, have you ever heard that expression, running around like her hair is on fire? Now, I love that image, by the way. I think it was a kid swinging upside down, but I turned it the other way around. And what it says is, when you've got daily things to do and longer term goals to achieve, it's critical that you can actually think clearly. But when you're running around with your hair on fire, catastrophizing about everything that go wrong, it's very hard to stay focused. Now, this is a key problem for clients because often when you've experienced a trauma, which resulted in you becoming very hypervigilant and running cortisol constantly through your body, you are going to naturally catastrophize all the time. You're going to always be thinking about all the things that can go wrong or what's going to happen next. And, one of the things that you see me do regularly on videos sometimes is my ninja, where's the next danger? Where's the next danger? Clients are very hypervigilant and, scanning the environment the whole time for danger. So catastrophizing is a version of that where the client is just waiting for something to go wrong. Now, the guidance on the card is when your brain starts running away with you, breathe and say, I clear my mind of unhelpful chatter. That is not helpful right now. Because how often has any catastrophic thought you have thought actually happened? Now, that's probably not very easy for clients to do on their own, to be honest. And for you in session, there can be a lot of work to do to get the client to a point where they can recognize that the thought that they're having or the catastrophizing thought that they're having or belief that they're thinking is not actually true, that it's very unlikely to manifest in reality, and that they can actually just ignore it and allow it to just move on and, out of their mind. So let's dig into this a little bit deeper and see how you actually do this with clients in session. All right, so in the book then, if we go to the book, we can see the deeper meaning of the card. And what I discussed there is a client that I worked with quite a long time ago in a group. And she had a habit of coming home from work every evening, eating her meal with her partner, and then cleaning her house for 2 hours every night. 2 people living in the house, no pets, no kids, both out working all day, pre-COVID, going into the office every day. And she came home and had to clean the house every night. Now, this was a catastrophizing thought or belief that she was having, which was if somebody called in unexpectedly and the house wasn't clean or tidy, I'd be mortified. I'd be really embarrassed. I'd be so ashamed, and they would judge me and, they would shame me. And where this came from, and the fear, of course, was that she couldn't, do anything until after she cleaned the house. So it meant that she wasn't free to do anything until after 9 o'clock in the evening. Now, where this actually came from was from her mother. Her mum, she grew up on a farm. There were a lot of children, it's a big family, Irish Catholic family. There were pets, dogs, cats, again on a farm, very common. And of course, there were people traipsing mud and dirt in and out of the house all day, and the pets dropping fur and etc. Her mother was a full-time homemaker because she had, a big family and she was helping running the farm as well. But her mother basically had to kind of clean the house more or less every day because of the traffic coming through the house and everybody traipsing through the house and all the rest of it. My client was, first of all, copying, a learned behaviour. So she had seen her mother cleaning the house every day. So that was something that she felt that she had to do. But the deeper piece was about, God forbid, as her mother would have said, God forbid if anybody called around and saw the state of this house. And that was kind of where my client was coming from. But she hadn't made the connection between the fact that she did not live in a house with multiple children, dogs, cats, and people traipsing in and out of a farm all day. In fact, her house was empty all day, and the house wasn't getting dirty all day, every day. So she didn't need to be cleaning her house every day. But the catastrophizing and fear thought was, if I don't keep the house clean and somebody calls in, I'd be mortified, I'd be really ashamed, they'd judge me and find me wanting, another phrase from her mum. So digging into that, we were able to kind of unpack it a little bit and say, you don't need to be cleaning your house. But a lot of my clients' stress and anxiety and what drove her emotional eating and binge eating was the fear of being shamed or the fear of being judged. And this came from her mother and her background and her home environment. Now, there were other things that the family could have been shamed and judged on as well. There was alcoholism in the family, and that was a much bigger picture, a different part of it. But that fear of being judged or shamed, because of what was going on in the family, rolled its way into other parts of the family's life, where the mum's, adaptation of that was, I must keep my house spotless and I must present the best version of myself and ourselves to the community, so that maybe they won't notice what's going on over there, which was actually the alcoholism. So again, the real trauma or adverse experience was that this client grew up in a house that had alcoholism, but the way it manifested itself was fear of being judged, fear of being shamed. And so lots of other things were being done to try and hide that or keep that in the background or to kind of distract people away from it. The other way that you might see this manifesting with clients is in the workplace. So they're doing their job 110%. They're probably doing 2 or 3 jobs. And this is very, very common for our clients, very much overachieving. But they also carry a very deep belief that it's only a matter of time before they're found out and they're going to be fired. So there will be people in work who will take advantage of our clients and pile the work on them and, know that they're not going to say no. In both scenarios, really what you're talking about is boundaries and being able to say yes to what you do want and need and say no to what you don't want to need. So in the case of my client who was doing the cleaning, what was actually going on was her partner was giving her quite a hard time and saying, look, we never get any time to do anything during the week and we have to pack everything into the weekend. And she even had to clean the house on a Saturday as well, by the way. So it wasn't just the weekly clean. The house got the big clean at the weekend. And our partner was getting very frustrated because they had very little time to do anything else. So we were able to work on letting go of her family beliefs, messages, and unpack the reasons why her mum was, so concerned about keeping the house clean and tidy, which was about the other thing. And we were also able to help work on reducing that cortisol, that fear and that hypervigilance in my client, because when she was able to reconnect with her partner and agree that maybe she was only going to clean the house 3 times a week and that she wouldn't clean it on a Saturday morning, but she'd clean it, at a different time of the weekend. And we had to really work our way through her cutting down on her cleaning routine because she needed that for her calmness as well. It was something that actually worked for her and calmed her down. Feeling that she had a clean and tidy house actually helped her feel that she really had a clean and tidy mind. But it was obsessive and it wasn't necessary to be done at the level that she was doing it. But she was able to start doing a class with her partner. What he wanted them to do actually was dance classes because they were getting married and for the first dance and that. So he wanted them to do dance classes. So they were able to pick the night that they were going to do their dance classes. And they also agreed that they would go out for a walk twice a week after their meal and just go and have a walk and talk about their day and all the rest of it. And over time, that client was able to see that there was really no need for her to be cleaning the house, that she could let go of that. And actually the connection with her partner and the love and support that she was getting from her partner was worth far more to her than, keeping this house clean due to an old legacy issue. This is how trauma manifests itself in clients' lives. Old trauma, putting people in a position where they're terrified of causing somebody else to kick off, causing judgment, drawing attention to themselves, being shamed. And shame is also a huge trauma trigger. or trigger that comes from trauma. These are all things that you may see manifesting in your clients in very different ways, which may not on the face of it appear to be connected to trauma at all. So the instance of having to clean my house obsessively every night. The second one for the workplace is that idea of, if I don't take on all the work and do everything that I'm told, I'll be fired. They'll find out that I don't know what I'm doing. I'll get into trouble. Or if it's a colleague who's always asking for favours, and can you do me a favour, and can you give me a dig out with this project, and can you help me do this report, and would you mind going to that meeting for me, because I'm too busy. That can be, they might not like me anymore. They might not want to be my friend anymore. Now, an adult client mightn't say those words specifically, but that is what the client is thinking, and that's what the client's fear is, that somebody's going to not want to like them, not want to be their friend anymore, or not want to like them. That's very childish language. They won't be my friend anymore. And, when you actually articulate it in that way and kind of ask the client, what age are you when you're having that thought or having that belief that they won't want to be friends with you anymore, or that, they'll fall out with you? Or it could be about conflict, that I don't want to have, I don't do conflict, I don't do fighting. Again, where is that coming from? Back in the day, maybe there was violence or anger or chaos or unpredictability in the house. And so the client, went the opposite way and said, I never do conflict, I never get angry, I just don't do that. So they keep the peace at all times. So this is where the people-pleasing piece comes from with a lot of our clients. And again, clients with trauma very often are what you would call people-pleasers. And there's very deep roots to trauma for that too. And there will be a video on people-pleasing coming out soon, so watch out for that. So I hope this helps you kind of understand, how clients can manifest trauma, and it might not look like exactly what you think it is. Now, the action that you give the client to try is to ask them to write down, say, their top 3 catastrophizing thoughts, okay? And you can do this in session where maybe it's one thought that they have, and you will work through it and say, okay, well, that's the catastrophizing thought. If this, then that. Like if I don't clean my house, somebody will call in and they'll see that I'm a messy cow, and, they'll judge me and they won't want to be my friend anymore. And then what's the truth? The truth is that, nobody calls in unexpectedly anymore. It's highly unlikely. That was something that happened, back in the day down the country, but it doesn't happen today. B, if somebody calls in, they're not going inspecting your spare rooms and your bathrooms. They will be walking into your kitchen or your living room, and they'll be sitting down and having a tea or coffee or a glass of wine, and they may use your bathroom before they go, and then that's the end of it. C, they're not coming to judge your house. They're not a judge on how clean is your house, So just breaking that down and helping the client to see that the catastrophizing thought is actually, it's a false thought. So this is an exercise that we call fear versus truth. And what I generally would tend to do is to, when you spot the client having a fear thought, like they say something that's a fear-based thought, you catch it and say, Mary, I just noticed there that sounded like a fear thought to me when you said, if I don't blah blah, then blah blah blah. And can we just have a quick look at that and maybe, look at what the truth is? Is that really true? And the more you use that phrase, fear thought, Mary, that was a fear thought, or, I think that might be a fear thought that you had just there. What's the truth? You are actually rehearsing something in session that the client can then take away with them. They will begin to spot their fear thoughts. They will begin to, as it says in the book, find their brain fascinating. And, that's fascinating now that I had that thought. Where's that thought coming from, or what triggered that thought? And then they're able to look at, is that a thought from my mother? Is that an old belief that doesn't belong to me because I don't believe that, or that's not relevant to my life as it is today, or that's not something that I want to do in my marriage or in my family or in my home. And the second thing is, am I quite stressed today? Is there something that I can do to calm myself down? Because I find that I have these thoughts when I am stressed. So the client is making the connection between being stressed and having more sort of fear-based catastrophizing thoughts. The other thing that you may have to work on with clients is their ABC, which is assertiveness, boundaries and communication. So in that work context, saying to a colleague, I'm sorry, I can't do that today. Maybe you could ask somebody else, or could you put it in an email and then I'll have a look at my schedule and then I'll come back to you. Putting those tools in place that allow the client to manage the situation a little bit better and do something appropriate that they know that everybody else in the office can do, but they just struggle to do it. So there is quite a lot to unpack when you see this catastrophizing thinking, and understanding that it's coming from trauma, and understanding that you might have to work with the client quite slowly in small bite-sized pieces to get them to a point where they're able to A, recognise when they're having a catastrophizing thought, and B, change it themselves without your support. But fear versus truth is the exercise that you're going to do consistently in the session to help them, get better at spotting it themselves, because what they're trying to do is build a new muscle in their brain. And until it becomes normal for them to be able to see this, and then they're able to breathe and say, I clear my mind of unhelpful chatter. This thought is not helpful right now. So I hope you enjoyed that today. Again, remember that the book has everything you need in it. It has every card and the description of the card, and then the reflective piece, the deeper meanings, and the actions that you can take with clients. That's completely free to download down in the links below. But if you do feel that the cards will be helpful for you to use in your sessions with clients as prompts, just having a client maybe just pick out a card and reading it and then working through it together. And one card could prompt weeks of work, as I've just demonstrated today. So very helpful resource for you to have if you feel motivated by them. But for now, take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.